For years, critics of silver have pointed to one argument whenever prices rise. If silver gets too expensive, industry will simply use less of it. Today, that prediction is becoming reality. Solar manufacturers around the world are aggressively reducing the amount of silver used in photovoltaic cells. Engineers are printing thinner conductive lines, redesigning cell architectures, and increasingly exploring copper substitution. At first glance, this sounds like terrible news for silver investors. But when we look deeper into the numbers, a very different picture emerges. The real story isn't that solar is using less silver. The real story is that silver remains in deficit even after one of the largest industrial demand reductions the market has ever seen. According to forecasts from the World Silver Survey, solar silver demand is expected to fall from approximately 232 million ounces in 2024 to around 151 million ounces in 2026. That's a reduction of roughly 81 million ounces annually. Think about that for a moment. 81 million ounces is not a rounding error. It represents more silver than many primary silver mines produce in an entire year. If there was ever a test of whether silver shortages were truly driven by industrial demand, this is it. And the result is surprising. Despite removing 81 million ounces of annual demand, the silver market is still expected to remain in deficit. The Silver Institute and Metals Focus continue to project a global silver deficit in 2026. In other words, even after solar manufacturers dramatically reduced silver consumption, the market still cannot fully balance supply and demand. That should force investors to ask an important question. If removing 81 million ounces isn't enough to eliminate the deficit, how tight is the market really? This suggests that solar was never the entire story. Instead, solar was simply the most visible piece of a much larger structural trend. The world is entering an era of unprecedented electrical expansion. Artificial intelligence requires data centers. Data centers require power systems. Power systems require transmission infrastructure. Transmission infrastructure requires electrical contacts, switches, conductors, sensors, and control systems. At the same time, electric vehicles continue to add silver demand. Grid modernization continues to add silver demand. Industrial electronics continue to add silver demand. Medical technologies continue to add silver demand. Defense technologies continue to add silver demand. So while investors focus on solar thrifting, many of these other demand drivers receive far less attention. Yet together they create a broad industrial foundation underneath silver consumption. Another overlooked reality is that silver is not used in solar cells because manufacturers enjoy spending money. Silver is used because it possesses unique physical properties. It is the most electrically conductive metal on Earth. It is highly corrosion resistant. It performs reliably for decades in harsh environmental conditions. Engineers can reduce silver usage. They can optimize designs. They can substitute some applications, but physics eventually creates a floor. The easiest reductions have already been achieved. Future reductions become increasingly difficult and increasingly expensive. This means solar demand may continue declining per panel, but there are limits to how far that process can go. Silver's greatest challenge is not demand, it's supply. Most silver production comes as a byproduct of mining other metals such as copper, lead, and zinc. That means silver supply cannot rapidly respond to higher prices the way other commodities often can. Even if silver prices rise significantly, mining companies cannot simply flip a switch and increase production. New mines require years of permitting, financing, development, and construction. Meanwhile, existing ore grades continue to decline across many jurisdictions. The result is a market that remains vulnerable to persistent shortages. The solar industry just conducted an accidental stress test on the silver market. Manufacturers removed roughly 81 million ounces of annual demand through thrifting and substitution. If silver's bullish thesis depended entirely on solar, the market should have moved into surplus. It didn't. Deficits remain. Industrial demand remains historically strong. Investment demand remains significant. Supply growth remains constrained. and the world continues building the electrical infrastructure of the future. That's why the most bullish takeaway from solar thrifting may not be the silver demand that was lost. It's the fact that the market remains tight even after that demand disappeared. The silver story is evolving. It's no longer just a solar story. It's becoming a story about the electrification of the entire global economy.